Hello, and welcome to the Original Remake Podcast, a show where we take the role of Hollywood executives, shamelessly exploiting your nostalgia for money. My name is Pat, and I'm joined by Amy.
Hello.
Andrea.
Hello.
And Nick.
Oh, hi.
And today we're discussing the newest film we're going to remake, the 2022 Moonfall. So let's start out with a brief overview of what Moonfall is for those who haven't seen it. It is on HBO Max currently. So if you have that, you can watch it for free.
You're not really watching it for free. You're blowing 2.5 hours of your time.
You don't get that back.
You never.
There's no refund on that.
No.
And also, this movie, no, sorry, I'm interrupting. Like,
so angry.
Sorry. This movie is quite literally.
This movie was offensive to all of my senses.
The thing that I picture when you say the words Moonfall, is a brown paper bag on my stoop that is on fire, and I'm wondering what's inside and whether or not to stomp it out.
So, Moonfall is about the moon falling onto Earth because it's secretly a Dyson sphere built by aliens.
None of it works that way.
Correct. It does. Despite the fact that this is a blockbuster,
it did not, in fact, do any of those things.
Well, it's an independent film. It's like the first independent blockbuster that I can remember. So this is okay. I'm on level with you. The first time I saw this movie, I have problems sleeping at night. So there's sometimes, like once a week, I just don't go to bed. And one of the nights I didn't go to bed, I started watching this movie at about 3:00 in the morning. So I watched it from like 3 to 6. And I thought, oh, that was a guilty pleasure. I really, really liked this movie. Like, even though it's obviously terrible, like it's not good, but I kind of enjoyed it. And then when I suggested it for the remake, I had to watch it again. And I was in like the light of day, like quite literally while I was awake. And I was like, oh yeah.
Mistakes were made.
I still don't hate it. It's still a guilty pleasure. It's
incorrect.
It's a terrible film, but I like it anyways.
You and your opinions are wrong. You're bad and you should feel bad.
That's fair. I do want to point out Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave this a 35%, but the audience gave it 70%.
Which I don't understand. I just don't understand.
It's
so bad.
There's lots of different people out there. Just saying that.
It's so contrived. Like, I think I actually saw the point where Halle Berry was like, oh God, I'm actually in this fucking movie. And I think for me, it was when she like wakes up and sees her phone and it's like, NASA is calling. And she like makes a sigh. And it's just like, I feel like that was the point where her character, where she went, fuck this movie. I need a paycheck.
It's just for the money. It's just for the money.
Yeah. It's like, you do what you got to do to tell yourself.
We may not like this movie, and we're right, but two of my coworkers said they saw it and they enjoyed it.
There's something special about this movie, even though it's bad. I really do feel that way.
No.
There's so much that could be changed to make it better.
Yeah, it's a very okay. So there's one of the things I do want to point out is this is an independent movie. So like they had, in order to finance this movie, they had to find like $150 million of privately financed money. Yeah. And then you add on the marketing costs. This movie bombed also, by the way. So everyone who invested in this movie lost over $100 million easy. Probably more than that. Probably close to probably
they're going to make a piece of crap like this. They deserve to have lost that kind of money.
But isn't this exactly?
I think the spread was something like 300 million between what was invested in marketing and then how it only brought in like 60 million at the box office. I think the total loss was somewhere like 300 million or 280 million or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely on a list of like biggest bombs ever. So we're never going to get the sequel where they go fight the alien race, but whatever.
You know what didn't bomb this bad? Masterminds. Masterminds did not bomb this bad. Masterminds was ranked worse on Rotten Tomatoes, but still had like a 50% audience score and
Probably.
still didn't bomb this bad.
Yeah, but we don't know how much money was spent on it.
Yeah.
It's like 2-3 million, wasn't it?
No, it was like 90 million and no, you're right. It was like 2 million and the box office only got like 1.8. Yeah. We made the joke that Patrick Stewart's budget is the only thing that they were able to cover with that movie.
I'll stand by this statement. Moonfall is a better film than Masterminds.
Ooh.
No, they're both pretty terrible.
They're both pretty terrible. So one thing to note is this is by who's the director? What's his name? Roland Emmerich, who you probably know as the director of a lot of big disaster films. He's got some pretty good films. Stargate and Independence Day are pretty good films. He's got some pretty bad films. Independence Day 2, White House Down, 2012, The Day After Tomorrow, 10,000 BC, The Patriot, and then the Ferris Bueller version of Godzilla are all his films and all pretty terrible.
I think we need to put an asterisk after 2012, Day After Tomorrow, and other such environmental disaster movies, because that's all Moonfall was a rehash of those same movies.
It had aspects.
How does the moon crashing into the earth constitute as a natural disaster preventable by mankind?
Oh, it didn't say anything about preventable. But it's a natural disaster, like San Andreas or Day After Tomorrow, Volcano. Okay.
Dante's Peak.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, Dante's Peak. I just keep thinking about the grandma that like waded into the lava.
Into the acid water.
Yeah, or the acid water.
Yeah. Oh my God. But like, so those were infinitely more believable because the moon literally scrapes mountains and shit. The scales are broken. I need to not.
So okay, let me defend my pick, because it's obviously not a great film, but the fact that this is a disaster film with some science fiction concepts you normally would only see in literature, like science fiction novels, I think is really cool. Like the idea of a Dyson sphere as the moon is really cool.
I can get behind that, but when you depend on physics for certain plot points and just laugh in the face of physics for other plot points, it drives me up a wall.
But here's the thing: there's no way to do the film in a way that. Let me give you another example.
Sure, you absolutely can. You cannot have a plot point about an engine not working and then getting a gravity assist by the moon because it's so close. You could just make the engine work.
I like the moon grabbing them part. It's cool.
That doesn't work.
If it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't make sense, but it's cool, then it works. That's the rule. No, that's the rule of books. That's the rule of any storytelling. Let me give an example here. Nick and I have read a book by Neil Stephenson, which we both adore for the most part. Andrea, I believe you are reading the book currently. The book is called Seven Eves. If you want a good version of this story, of the Moonfall story, go read this book. It's similar. There's obviously a lot of differences in ways that make the book much better. But there's plenty of things in that book that are unbelievable or wouldn't really happen. And I don't care, because Neil Stephenson makes the storytelling effective and makes it cool. The problem with the film is not that the idea of the moon falling to Earth because it's a Dyson sphere is dumb and all of the pseudo physics that goes along with it. It's that the movie is really terrible with all of its A and B plots.
It's apocryphal, though.
If you fix that, it's just cool.
The part that drives me nuts is that the movie opens talking about, oh my God, the moon is getting closer to Earth. See this line? This is the Roche limit. If we cross this line, the moon's just going to fall apart because the tidal forces on the moon are going to tear it apart. Well, we pretend that doesn't exist for the Earth when a captured star inside of a celestial body gets too close to the planet. Why doesn't the Earth fly apart? Plot armor. That's the only reason why. You do stuff like that where you say one thing and then laugh in the face of it 15 minutes later in the same movie. In Seven Eves, they do play with physics. They do play with the reality of things, but when they commit to it, they make it a rule and they stick to it.
It's like you've set the laws of that universe. You have to stay with the laws of the universe, like the rules of that universe.
You don't just get rid of them.
Physics on its head, that's fine, but keep those rules consistent.
You don't see me watching season 2 of Snowpiercer and then being like, you know what? It'd be great if we could pull over in the Bahamas and take a day off. And all of a sudden it's warm for a day. No, it doesn't fit the canon of that universe, so it doesn't happen. This movie took that and threw it out the window. That's what drove me nuts about this movie. Is it just contradicting itself?
I have to disagree. I don't particularly care about films that break kind of established laws of physics for plot points. Again, if it's cool. If it works for the film,
if they wanted to commit to it,
yeah.
If they wanted to commit to it and just say this is how the physics work now, there's a moon that's actually a Dyson sphere with a white dwarf star in it, created by an alien civilization. We can play with physics now. Like, fine, commit to that, but don't have it work one way and then 20 minutes later have it work a different way and pretend they're the same thing. That's
Here's the thing,
part
though,
that bothers me.
Most people don't care about that, right? Let me give you another example of a film that I think is fantastic. Interstellar works in much the same way, in that the black hole changes throughout the film. And I've had discussions with folks who enjoy that film but have a problem with the physics, in that ultimately, because the black hole is a man-made object from a future mankind, that it can be a kind of Deus Ex Machina, because it's literally designed to be by people who are godlike, have godlike technology, so that they can change the rules of the black hole and have someone fall in and into the Tesseract and jump out the other side or what have you. And even though theoretically a million years would have passed instead of like 10 minutes.
Right.
You can have those rules. And it's still the reason I love Interstellar is not because the science works or doesn't work. It's because it's fucking awesome.
Sure. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
But one thing that they do is when they declare funny physics, they stick to the funny physics. The Moonfall, they declare funny physics and then turn them back off again when they send the capsule up to send the probe into the moon. Like, somehow that's able to hold orbit and not just smack into the moon's surface. If you can literally pull the oceans off the Earth at the moon, how the hell is a capsule flying in orbit around this? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. That's the part. The contradictions are what bother me. They don't follow their own established rules.
The problem is you can't have the movie if you have to follow those rules, right?
You can. You absolutely can, because somehow there's gravity in the moon, right? You can have 30 seconds of exposition saying, oh, this is why this works. Fancy alien race came by with their wizard-like technology that made this all possible.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump. I don't want to jump ahead, but I agree with you that I want the film to be more tech heavy, but I don't want to jump ahead to changes.
Okay,
So let's agree to that we're kind of on the same page, and I feel like we're both on the different sides of the same coin on what we want and why we want it.
Okay.
And and this is why I chose to remake this film, because there's a version of this film that we both like and is really fucking good.
Oh, you're gonna make him change his mind.
I absolutely hate you in that you're probably right there.
Right, because this movie. I'm this movie. I just want to. I've said it before. This movie's awful.
Yes.
It's fucking awful. I love it. God. I loved watching it the first time at 3:00 in the morning.
I think that was sleep drunk Pat that just, rose-colored glasses doesn't remember how truly awful the movie was.
I literally put the movie on to not watch a movie. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, I'll have this on the background while I'm doing stuff on my computer. And then I did nothing and just watched the movie for 3 hours. All right, Nick and I have chatted a lot about this film. Andrea, Amy, give us some of your thoughts. Review the film. Roast me. Go.
I think
it wasn't good.
No, the dialogue was contrived. It was cliche and stifling.
That's a good word.
I feel like that this movie was like all like look at movies of the similar genre, including other films that Roland Emmerich has done. Let's cherry pick the dumbest parts of each of those movies and put them into this. So, for
Giant
example,
wave, check.
Yeah, I feel like I watched every single movie in that movie.
Right? I got strong Armageddon flavors, and Armageddon was a stupid movie, but at least it was fun. You know, I mean, it had some really bad lines. I'm looking at you. I've got space dementia. Like it was not great. But like it was watchable. Like I wasn't in physical pain. So for example, like oh god, I wrote down some of the parts that like okay, so heroes fly into space to attack the aliens on their turf. That is Independence Day. Crazy scientists no one believes until it's too late. That's Independence Day, the day after tomorrow. NASA trains some has-been civilians to fly space shuttles into space and detonate a bomb. Pretty sure that's Armageddon, and I think Deep Impact, but I'm not.
Space Cowboys.
Space Cowboys, but that was
Space Cowboys.
Wasn't that a good film though?
That one
I enjoyed it.
It was enjoyable, but it also knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Deep Impact is a great movie though, and they do that in that movie too.
Let's see. Pointless family drama that have little to no stakes while the heroes are off saving the world from all of the prior
100%.
stated.
100%.
And also family members that are somehow more special than anybody else because they just happen to be the kid of this one rando person who's done this one thing that can only save the world. Well, Armageddon did that. And The Day After Tomorrow did that. You know, we're gonna save this one kid because his dad is a climate guy. Like,
can I interrupt you here because Nick, I think you have this down in the notes too. I have this down in the notes. The entire B plot of the family trying to get to safety should be shotgunned out of this movie immediately.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
so awful.
It's so awful. The characters are underdeveloped. The actors are bad. The only character from all of the family members that's actually good is Michael Pena's character.
Tom, MVP.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. R.I.P. to the real hero. Literally the only person who died from a moonfall. Like everyone else miraculously didn't worry about. Like at one point, the characters, all the cars are being lifted up, and some of the characters hide in like a wooden barn. Yeah. And for some reason, the gravity just doesn't affect this wooden barn.
Yep. Yeah, a tractor somehow drifts sideways.
They're
not up. Now doesn't start floating away or anything.
In a tunnel. They're in an
No. This was on the farm before they got to the tunnel.
Well, this was the farm. Yeah. It must have blacked out.
Probably. Probably for the best.
I don't understand why they were like running out of oxygen. How does
I don't get that either.
Crashing into the earth, impact the atmosphere.
Andrea, I don't want to call you out. This is basic science, okay? When a Dyson sphere, when a moon falls on the earth, it grabs some of the air. Do you not understand basic science? Okay, I'm just kidding.
Oh my fucking god!
No, listen,
turtles all the way down.
Yeah.
They needed a reason to kill Tom. That's why the air disappeared.
I mean, they could have gotten rid of all of that stuff and saved me an hour and a half of my life.
Completely
at
irrelevant.
At one point, they actually termed something in the movie. They called it like a gravity wave when the the water is coming up, and like it's they have like an in-universe term for it of like, watch out, it's a gravity wave. I'm like, this is a giant wave. It's just a giant wave of water. It's not you know what I mean? Like,
oh my god.
Yep. Yep.
I feel like all the acting in this movie is just not great. I mean, with the exception of Michael Pena, like everyone, it seems to me like everyone's they just innately know that they're in a piece of crap, and none of the lines are delivered with any conviction.
Disagree.
With maybe the exception of Casey. but maybe the exception of. I don't know.
I think Patrick Wilson is okay in this film. He's the lead actor. I think the guy from Game of Thrones who plays the comic relief is pretty good for comic relief in a B movie.
Yeah.
I think Halle Berry, Andrew, you already pointed out, is just awful. She looks like she's reading her lines off a teleprompter.
Yes.
That sounds about right for the level of effort that I feel she put into this.
So those two I don't mind though, but I agree with everyone else in the film that they're ineffective at what they do, even though what they're supposed to do is very basic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I feel like I mean, this might be something that would go under changes, but I'll say this for changes.
Okay.
But yeah, like I just, if I wanted to watch a movie like this, I'd just watch Armageddon. And Armageddon had the same problems too. Like Liv Tyler has zero reason to be in that movie other than eye candy.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Armageddon was 20 years ago. Armageddon's a pretty. I've watched that like in the last year. Is when when I had COVID in December, I watched Armageddon, and to just have something on, it's fucking awful. It's a terrible film. It's honestly just as bad as Moonfall. It really is. But because it's that 90s era, like it gets forgiven. Like Independence Day is a classic for our generation, right? I remember watching that from the hallway. I wasn't supposed to see it. And we were on a vacation to America. We were at my grandma's house, and they had me sleeping in the office in like a little spare bed. And I snuck out and laid on the floor in an angle that I could see the TV from like 30 yards away. And I watched that's the first time I watched Independence Day. It was like that, just laying in a hallway, hoping no one would walk past. But that movie's not very good either. Like if you break it down and be like, oh yeah, this is just not great. But because we saw it at a certain age,
like I saw it in the theater with my dad.
Right. Yeah. So we're in a different era of our lives, and we're a different era of movie making, and that's why I think this film doesn't work so far as being successful.
I mean, Independence Day wasn't great either, all things considered. I mean, it was not bad, but the bar's not very high.
Well, you also got to remember that back in the Independence Day time frame, CG and practical effects had not been done that way at that scale before.
And I remember people freaking out because the infamous shot of the White House being blown up. Like I feel like people were just like, "Oh my god," because it was done.
How did they do that?
Yeah, because it was done with miniatures.
One of the big selling points is like, no, everything gets destroyed here in Independence Day, right? And the fact that it was a movie that looked so realistic. It's the first movie I remember where the special effects were so good that like it felt real. You know what I mean? Yeah. And for like 1994, I want to say Independence Day.
96, I thought.
I could be wrong.
96.
96. Okay. So for 96, like that's just a great accomplishment if you look at some of the other, movies of that time. In fact, one could say special effects have gotten worse since then. Bizarrely. Case in point, Moonfall. One thing I do want to say before we kind of move on to changes is a trivia note here that I've seen on Internet Movie Database.
Oh boy. And
Nick, this is specifically for you, talking about like the physics of it and stuff. A real astronaut was on set during production as an advisor. Whenever he approached the director and said that's not really possible, he was told to roll with it because it's just a movie.
Oh Jesus!
So they brought on a professional specifically to ignore him. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh
okay.
my god,
that's awful.
I actually made that point to Lady at one point while watching the movie. I'm like, these people are wearing NASA everything, hats, gloves, coats, everything. How did NASA not lose its ever-living shit over this movie?
I mean, I thought it was because they slapped NASA's name on it and was like, okay, well.
No, hold on a second. Have you seen the newest NASA video announcing the astronauts for the Artemis trip to the moon? It's like full on Soviet propaganda.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Like it's got like
Jesus.
inspirational music and like they all walk up to the camera and like salute it. I'm like, God damn, like you don't need to sell me going back to the moon. I'm already all in, but
right.
I wouldn't surprise me if they were there to stop a moonfall, to be perfectly frank. That's what they're actually going back for. They saw this movie and they're like, we need to get back to the moon ASAP to make sure that it's not hollow on the inside.
It's not a what do they call it, a super
A mega structure.
mega structure.
Yeah, he's a mega structureist. It's like a flat earther, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they even do say like that one guy's like, yeah, the moon is hollow and lizards come out of it.
Yeah.
No, it was
Or was he joking?
No, he was joking, but the guy that said that the moon is hollow and they grow lettuce inside.
They grow
Potatoes.
like they go like potatoes inside or something. Yeah.
How do you think the Incas got it or something like that?
What?
Yeah.
That
Wow.
some crazy line like that.
Yeah, that turned out to be correct, right? They're like growing all these like plants and stuff.
There was an entire ring of like
Yeah.
produce being grown.
Yeah.
But like
I felt
that doesn't
very
make sense.
angry with the space shuttle in this movie because I love the space shuttle program and I love the space program and I thought like learning about it is awesome and I love learning about it.
Yeah.
And we've seen all of the space shuttles except for Endeavour.
Yeah.
And
but not the one in this film.
Yes. And when they put the space shuttles into the museums, they basically gutted it.
The orbiters,
excuse me. When they put the orbiters into the museums, they gutted them. There's no life support. There's no engines. There's nothing. It's basically a shell. And
I mean, they had to take out everything that was using, like the coolant, for example, is noxious and toxic. Like you can't leave that there to years from now start leaking into a public space.
Right.
So all of those systems were removed.
Right. And in some cases, like Atlantis is it Atlantis that's hanging? Or is it Atlantis? Okay. So Atlantis is hanging.
They had to retrofit it.
When you walk into the Kennedy Space Center to see Atlantis, it's like hanging on like these metal like cables.
Yeah.
Cables,
and I would imagine that you'd have to take out some of the guts to make it able to
not be so damn heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
And this movie is just like, oh, we could just get back in and throw it on a rocket and put it into space.
I will say they did talk about the engines and like how they were putting them back in and how one was broken. But like if you actually pause the movie while they're bringing the orbiter down the street, the wing for the orbiter is between two telephone poles that it cannot clear. And on the other side of the street, it's up against a tree that it also cannot clear. And when the orbiter was actually brought through downtown LA, they had to cut down all of the palm trees. They had to relocate some telephone poles. There are points at which they were bringing it down the street where they had to lift and tilt the orbiter just to barely squeak past buildings and other fixtures that they couldn't move.
Right. It took them a week.
It took a week to do. Somehow this movie did it in a matter of hours. And like that was another thing that we were talking about. This movie created an arbitrary timeline of 3 weeks.
Yes.
Before the moon was going to crash in.
You could have given
But the line
months.
before, the literal line before was, oh, it's going to be about 3 months. No, with the new gravity that the moon has, it's going to be more like 3 weeks. Get rid of that asinine line and leave it at 3 months, and all of a sudden your timetables all work.
Yeah.
Little tweaks like that.
That's one of the changes that I would
that's definitely one of the changes we'll make. One of the things, this is a very minor thing that doesn't matter at all, but Halle Berry and what's the guy's name from Game of Thrones? What's the character's name?
Casey Houseman.
Okay, Casey Houseman. Well, I'm going to call him Casey. Okay. So Halle Berry's character and Casey, played by John Bradley from Game of Thrones, are not supposed to go to space. And when they get in when they get in the space shuttle, they're both wearing like NASA gear with their name on it. I'm like, how did you print them off name tags? Like, what's that?
Yeah,
that was one of the things that just made me laugh. Also, shout out to putting in a Chinese actress in a big part role so you can sell this movie in China.
It wasn't a big part. I thought she was a housekeeper. Like, I thought she was like a wet nurse.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
she is a nanny, I think, right?
Yeah,
But
she
no,
is.
I thought they
No.
said she was a foreign exchange
she's
student.
an exchange student.
Yeah.
Oh,
And there was one line where they said she was an exchange student.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, what the hell? Is she like a
Like,
house cleaner?
They introduced her as
Is she
making
like-
coffee.
Is she
like-
like a lover? Like, what is the deal? I
Yeah.
don't understand.
It's all like 10 years later. Here, I made you coffee. I'm like,
Are you
who are you?
Are you her spouse?
Like
I'll buy that.
like what is your purpose here? I no judgments. Just tell me what you are. like I don't understand you. I don't understand your role. But yeah.
All right, so we've talked a lot about this movie. I do want to move on to changes because we've kind of we're close to going to what we want to change. But before we do, Nick, Andrea, and I have all screamed over Amy. You've said 3 words. This movie is bad. Do you have anything to add, or is this movie is bad good enough?
this movie's bad.
Perfect. I knew it.
I like I said earlier in the podcast, I did ask people if they knew the movie because it was one of our newer ones.
Yeah.
So at work, I asked some
Okay.
coworkers. Doesn't mean I think they have. Doesn't mean I agree with them, but some people did say it was all right.
I want to say this out loud in case any of her coworkers are listening. You think your coworkers have bad tastes?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Controversial, but
And-
true.
And
But it takes a lot of people to buy movies and sell tickets. Not everybody has to know the
Ooh.
physics.
I,
But
true.
I mean,
everyone should be good actors. That's all I'm saying. The
Yeah.
script should be better.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think Pat's right. I think we'll get to it into the changes section.
Yeah.
And as a movie on its own, this is god awful.
But
As a movie for us to remake as part of this podcast,
yep.
god damn you.
What
It's
a great pick, am I
probably-
right?
It's probably an excellent pick.
What do you
It's
mean,
probably- yeah. So
we
okay,
haven't
let's
done our changes, so probably.
yeah, that's true. So let's move
It
on.
remains to be seen.
Let's move on then to changes. For those regular listeners, we normally do casting before we jump into changes. But we were going to try the opposite, where we talk about the changes to the film and then do the casting and see if that works a little bit better for our kind of flow for the podcast. So we'll jump into changes. I think there's 2 big ones. I'm going to say them both out loud, and then I think we can jump into one at a time. The first big one is, so far as the actual science and what's happening in the movie science-wise and mission-wise, I want it to be taken a lot more seriously. I want it to be cooler. Like there's a lot of missed opportunities in the film as well. And I want the film just to take itself more seriously than it is now. The second thing that the big problem is, and a lot of blockbuster films have this problem still to this day, is the family aspect B plot, including everyone in the main character's families, all the kids, the ex-wife, Tom, the stepfather, RIP to the MVP, best character in the movie, the real hero. Every single aspect of them trying to run away from the moon falling and try to get to the base, just delete it. Press like literally the delete key. Get out of our movie. So those are the 2 big ones.
I'm sorry. You said run away from the moon falling, and it throws.
It sounds so dumb, doesn't it?
Okay.
It
Continue,
is.
Pat. Continue. I agree with everything you're saying.
Well, if we've learned anything, it's that if gravity like randomly fluctuates to 10 times its normal amount, you could just
Triggered.
hide in a wooden barn and it'll be fine.
Triggered.
Yeah. Also, the tunnel they hide in would make it worse. Wouldn't they be like shot out of the tunnel like a bullet from the gravity?
It depends, man. Like gravity is apparently a movable force now. Like
Yeah. All right, so let's jump in. Let's do the science. Let's do the A plot first. The mission to the moon with Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and John Bradley.
I don't understand the A plot. Like, why the A plot first if we're going to delete the B plot? It would be just the A plot.
Yeah, fair.
That's true. Yeah, okay. So we can do the B plot if we want and talk
No,
about.
God, no. Pretend it never happened.
Control A, Control X.
Yeah,
That's what
so
you do.
I agree. I think you can still have them in the movie, but just have them shipped off to the Colorado base right away, and just not have them have to get there.
You can have them there for that little bit of family tension in the beginning, the washed up astronaut to really sell that, you know?
Yeah.
But like all the hoops that they went through. I swear that entire B plot only existed for the Lexus commercial we saw in the middle.
Yeah.
I actually have a note here that we keep Tom in the movie as the stepdad who didn't go to Colorado because he wasn't invited by Patrick Wilson's character who hates him. And then Tom has to drive a Lexus around running away from the Moonfall so we can get we need the product placement to make our money back on this movie.
Oh,
so we need the Lexus in the film.
Doing cool stuff.
There's a point in the film where the Lexus drives off a cliff and then hits a part of the earth that's moving.
Yeah.
That's being lifted off and then jumps off of that and ramps off of that.
Well,
why don't we just put the Lexus in the space shuttle?
That'd be a much better rover.
Let's put the Lexus on the space shuttle, and then when they get to the moon, they can drive that around.
Or better yet, we can say the new moon rover brought to you by Lexus.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, man. No, I'm sorry.
Already about film.
Like, I know movies do product placement like that to try and, subsidize the cost.
But it literally looked like a Lexus commercial.
But this legitimately looked like one of those Christmas time Lexus commercials.
Yeah, all it was a big red bow and some disembodied voice saying, "Give your family what they truly want for the holidays.
Special
Give
leasing
the gift of Lexus this holiday season."
Yeah.
Fair. Okay, so that's you're right. The B plot. I was going to talk about it, but like honestly, we don't want into this film. And what I would do is spend that extra time really fleshing out the mission and what they have to do. So like going back to the book we've read, Seven Eves, this book's like 800 pages, and the first like 500 of those pages are how do we not die immediately?
Yes.
And like what's happening right now to stop us from dying? How are we designing the International Space Station? How are we designing like how are we trying to design the future to get out of here? And like put a lot more effort into.
Even Armageddon took 2 weeks to talk about what they're gonna do.
Right. What the movie I was going to suggest is The Martian. Has anyone seen The Martian? Andy Weir novel.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And
great
a great
movie
book.
And a great book. Literally, that movie is problem solving, right? Like a problem comes up, they have to solve it. A problem comes up. That's what they need to do in this movie instead of cutting to a B plot every 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I think if they took all of that B plot time to flesh out the A plot, and like you said, kind of lean into making the science make sense.
Yeah.
You can explain some of it away. I mean, aliens are in this damn movie, okay? You can explain a bunch of it away with exposition later.
Yeah.
You can retcon it in your own movie. You'd be like, why did gravity happen here? Why did the moon suddenly start flying like it's a spaceship? Oh, aliens. Like you could do that. And they didn't.
Yeah.
Like you can say instead of 3 weeks till the world dies because the moon's going to crash into it.
3 months.
You could stick with the original estimate that they said in the movie of 3 months.
Yeah.
You talk about the Roche limit of where the tidal forces of gravity from the moon being so close to Earth, the gravity that's holding all of the rocks and components that make up the moon no longer have enough. There's insufficient gravity to hold it together. You can talk about how that is the real problem. Not that the moon's going to crash into the Earth, but that it's going to fall apart and do what Seven Eves did and call it the
white sky.
Oh, the white sky and the hard rain.
Yeah.
You can play with those ideas that the real threat isn't that the moon's going to crash into us in 3 months. The real threat is that it's going to fall apart and bake us from the outside because it's going to set the atmosphere on fire. you could do that stuff and still be scientifically accurate, or at least within reason for the scope of a sci-fi movie, to buy you the time that you need to get to the giant space alien rock circling our planet. You can feed into the conspiracy theories of, why do eclipses work? Why is it 400 times the distance between the sun and the moon versus the sun and the earth, versus the size of the earth is 400 times different than the size of the moon? All those crazy numbers that Casey was spewing out there about all the coincidences, about why things are the way they are. You just threw all that away with your crappy one-lines.
Yeah.
Lean into that and embrace it.
Right.
Like,
and I think
there's so much potential there.
To go back to like Interstellar, Christopher Nolan is an incredible director. Imagine if you just gave him the beat by beat of this movie and said, go nuts, make another version of Interstellar. Or like, I know a bunch of people didn't like Tenet, but I love Tenet. Inception, all of these films, fantastic. They're great. I love them. I love all those films. Even, Tenet, like I went to see in IMAX, and I'm not sorry for it. Like, I know people are lukewarm on it. I think the ideas are fantastic and they work in universe, and that's all I need. Yeah. And so if the film took itself seriously enough to do that and spent the time, again, like The Martian, developing the plot points so far as for the mission itself. Another film, Amy fell asleep during the first run of the film, which has surprised zero people. And then after that film was over, I put on Contact.
Okay.
And Contact has a similar thing to like a film like Interstellar, where most of the film is the setup and the build up to the final like 15-minute third act.
Right.
And you do it exactly like that film. You have to design this quick mission that needs to be put together by all the nations of Earth with like scraps, because we don't have time to design new stuff.
Yeah. And
then you can even have like in Contact, there's these religious nut jobs, right? And think about religious nut jobs even today, right? Like a tornado hits, a state, and there's a bunch of people that are like, this is probably God punishing us for gays or something stupid like that.
Oh,
like there's crazy people out there, right? Like, and you could have the moon falling, just have like crazy religious cults say, well, the reason it's falling is because God wants us to die. This is the apocalypse. We're not going to go fix it. And so have them actively oppose the project.
They did actually start to lean that way. And I thought we were going to go that direction. Like Independence Day with all the people dancing on the rooftop saying, welcome the aliens,
Yeah.
Like they started that in the beginning of this film. They showed like an extremist with his guns and whatnot saying, like his propaganda and whatnot. And then they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that's what we were seeing when we got to the carjacking point. But no, that was just a couple of punk kids trying to steal a vehicle because they needed to go get the oxygen from the fire department. Because apparently everyone knew that the oxygen was going to disappear when the moon got close.
Everyone knows all about the made-up science in this film, let me tell you.
But I like where you're going with Contact. The first 90 minutes or so of this film could have been all the mission prep, all the analysis of what's happening with the moon. What was that crazy black goo glob of whatever in low Earth orbit that smacked into the orbiter the first time and then dug a hole on the moon, and trying to, work the problem a la The Martian.
Yeah.
And then the last 30 minutes of this film are almost in real time of the shuttle launching, getting to orbit, going to the moon, like step by step through that process of saving the planet.
Can I talk about time?
Oh, yeah. Time was seriously fluid in this movie.
So I feel like you've done a lot of pontificating.
Wow, pontificating, huh?
Yeah.
Those are big words for this movie. That's too big of a word.
So the time continuity really drove me crazy, because during like the first half hour to an hour of the movie, I was quite confused as to what was going on and how long things took. And if I were to remake it, I would fix the time. Like you said, Beast, that, instead of giving it 3 weeks, give it that 3 months, like whatever. And like it went from like the original like thing happening to 6 months later to 10 years later or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was super confusing. And it went from it went from present to 6 months to 10 years.
Yes.
Without a lot, like I think there was like a caption at the bottom for one of them, but not both.
I thought he had 2 sons, but it was just one son and then the same son like 10 years later.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then like it was the like fastest, most quixotic, slow movie. Like the parts that didn't matter were what I wrote down. I wrote in my notes, slow in the parts that don't matter and fast in the parts that do. Or vice versa.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because all the B plot kind of just drags.
Like, the parts that are important, we need to slow down and we need more information on that. Or if the parts that are important need to be exciting, we speed that up.
Like the nerdgasm that they're having at NASA HQ when they figured out that the gravity of the moon is actually different than what they thought. They spent all of 30 seconds on it, and it's a pivotal point in understanding how the moon is doing what it's doing. Right.
And it's like, things moved so fast. It's like, okay, here's this chunk of story that moves so quickly. I feel like it's not important. And if it's going to move that fast, like make it something that's, a B plot. If you're going to do the family scenes, make them go quick, because otherwise it's going to drag the whole thing down, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah, they can do. We'll go back to The Martian. Donald Glover's character, he like figures it out, right? And they show the aha moment of his character figuring out the math of getting.
But they don't show you every single algebra course it took him to get there.
Right. But then they show it to you again when he's explaining it to the senior staff.
Yeah.
And that's when they take the deep dive on it. And that is what like kind of accentuates it or gives it the gravity. See what I did there? That it needs to carry the point. They could easily do something like that in this movie.
Yeah.
It just didn't.
And they need to make the time not so arbitrary. If they're going to say that, the moon is speeding up and slowing down, you need to at least kind of give me an idea of what is going on. Like, at least, have someone coming in and saying, okay, well, we have to speed this up because the time frame has changed. Or, oh, we have to do this because, we don't have any more. Like, help me out here.
Yeah.
I'm struggling.
Keep me on the same page.
Yes.
I think the callback to the Martian there is a good one, Nick, when you're talking about Donald Glover, because he's a character that has an important part to play in the film. But when he's not on when he's done with that important part of the film, he's not important. He just disappears. And for the most part, like he comes in, he solves that one problem. And that's part of the thing with the novel as well, which is it's very plot focused. You don't need to develop these characters. Donald Glover doesn't need to we don't need to explore his family issues. We don't need to explore his personal life. This is who he is. This is what he's doing. This is the problem he has to solve. And we enjoy watching the way he solves that with his character quirks. This movie needs a lot more of that.
Maybe that's the rule set or like the litmus test that would make this movie a good movie. Is if you're telling it as a story 100 years from now, the depth of the character doesn't matter. The actions that the characters took, the events that happened, and the reason why you still exist on the planet, those are the important bits.
I mean, unless it's a main character and we have to care about them. In that case, we do need to know.
Well, like, we all know Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. I don't know anything about his personal life.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I'm saying is like, that was what, 70 years ago now? 65 years ago?
Right, but that's different because we know the circumstances surrounding that situation, and that makes us care. for example, we know that moon landing was important because JFK said that we were going to try to get to the moon before the decade was out, and we were trying to beat the Russians to the moon. That's why we understood.
We beat those goddamn Reds. I tell you,
we beat those pinko communists.
That's right.
And like that's why that scenario is important. So if you're watching a movie about Apollo 11, we may not need to know the exact moment to moment of his background. But for a movie like this, where we don't know what the buildup is, we don't know the world, we don't know the history, we need to know about the character.
But that's kind of what I'm talking about. Why I think The Martian worked so well is because, like Pat said, we didn't need to know about each and every character. There's one or two that we got a little bit of depth on, but
Mark Watney is the main character in that movie, and through his issues, we learned about him.
Yes, him, and only him.
Right, but that's all that mattered.
Right. I think we're arguing the same point.
Yeah, can I jump in here and say...
I mean, the book is The Martian, not The Martian and 5 other people on Earth.
Okay. Can I jump in here and say that I think you're both on the same coin, just on different sides of it. I want to talk briefly about something I think you two are skirting around, which is if we get rid of the B plot and why they're doing this, there's not a lot of tension between the characters. And you don't necessarily need to know the history of a character for the character to be interesting. If the way they interact with other characters is interesting, then the movie works on an emotional level. An example from the movie that doesn't work. Patrick Wilson's character feels guilty about the other astronaut dying. That is a terrible emotional plot point, because he's not responsible, and anyone with half a brain cell knows that it's not his fault, and he knows it's not his fault. And so when KC tells him, "Hey, Brian, it wasn't your fault, your friend dying." Yeah, we fucking know. Like, it's not like there's nothing to forgive. He didn't do anything bad, and now he has to get over it. And
that's another point that the movie tried to force on us, though, is because, well, we all knew it wasn't his fault. In the little like discovery meeting and like debrief afterwards, they absolutely, like, NASA pinned it on him.
Yes.
So, like,
well, we learn why it was pinned on him in the we learned why.
Yeah, they needed a scapegoat.
Right, but you got to make it more believable. You have to make us care about that relationship. Like, all of his bantering was with the captain, Joe, who was in the in the orbiter. But like he had the friendly banter with her. But at the same time, like when they get back on Earth, they're enemies. Now they hate each other, because her words are being used against him. Like, I feel like that if we had more of a relationship between Patrick Wilson's character and that other guy, we care more about that.
That's what I was going to say, is the tension between the characters, specifically Joe and, God, it's so bad I can't remember three. Brian Harper is the other guy. So Joe and Brian, they have Halle Berry like get knocked out. Here's a better way to do that. Have Halle Berry see what happened and have her be willing to lie, and have Patrick Wilson's character Brian not be willing to lie. So now NASA has to cast him as the crazy one, and then their relationship is, we were besties, like we were great friends, and you didn't back me up and you lied. So instead of having Halle Berry's character find out about the conspiracy, have her be a part of it.
Yeah.
And be working on some of the projects while kind of ostracizing Brian Harper's character. And then when it's those two that have to come back, there's tension between the two characters, and there's a reason for them. Betrayal. Exactly. And so, because right now between the three characters that go up into the moon, there is zero conflict. Zero. And that's fine if you all want to be friends, but it doesn't really, there's no emotional beats to the film that we have to reconcile with. Right?
Yeah, and if you did something like that, you could have that, listen, I know you hate me, but we just got to do this to save the planet, like emotional tension moment where you can see that they're really having like internal struggles that they need to overcome.
Yeah. Agreed.
Another piece I'd change would be Donald Sutherland's character.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that at all. And I think that if the movie made the changes that you, like, just a second ago suggested, Pat, she would, like, Jo, Halle Berry's character, would know all of the things that Donald Sutherland was there for, and thus we wouldn't need to take time to have her go down in the basement and discover this weird guy. And like that random piece
who
of
kills himself afterwards, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It is implied that he did because he was like cleaning a gun or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's got an appointment with something on his desk.
Right.
Or whatever.
But like
Wink.
that didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
If you already made those changes prior.
Yeah, I suspect that Donald Sutherland is in the movie so they could put the name Donald Sutherland on the movie poster. He plays, actually, this is a good comparison. I don't know if anyone's here seen the film Ad Astra with Brad Pitt.
Oh, Ad Astra.
Ad Astra, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that movie was going to be so much better than it actually was.
Oh, okay, awkward. I love that movie. I think it's great. Another sci-fi movie that takes itself very seriously and kind of explores like masculinity and what type of man you want to be and that type of thing.
I'm sorry, but you said you liked Moonfall the first time. Your opinion is irrelevant.
I mean,
I like Moonfall this time. I'm not saying it's a good movie, but I think Ad Astra is an actual good quality film.
It is.
But Donald Sutherland is in that as well, and he just basically is a cameo to like push Brad Pitt along to the other side of the moon and then just kind of disappear. I think I think he's similar in this.
I was wondering if he was actually like a nod or a throwback to Space Cowboys, because he was in Space Cowboys.
No, that idea has too much depth for this film.
Yeah. Well, you guys,
am I giving it too much credit?
Yeah. Do you guys not know about the Space Cowboys cinematic universe? Weird.
Oh, if only. I also like how Jo walks in and she's all like, oh, cool, top secret USB drive with video on it. Donald Sutherland's character comes in, hey, what are you doing with that top secret information? By the way, here's a bunch of top secret information. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, you just don't need it in the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, if you have Halle Berry be the antagonist of the first half of the film to Brian Harper's character.
Oh, yeah.
It just works so much better. She knows she's been her husband, right, is working on the secret tech that they're going to try and use because they know it's coming, so they're trying their best to prepare.
He was in the DOD.
Right. And his character essentially does nothing, right?
Yeah. Well, he has the completely unnecessary moment of fake tension of holding back the entire arsenal of nukes being aimed at the moon, which was just going to sterilize the Earth anyway. So, like, why?
Yeah. Because it's satisfying. No, I'm not going to say
because
that.
we had to generate some artificial tension.
Yeah.
But like they undermined their own tension by saying that shooting the moon this close is really just going to sterilize the Earth. Like that's another change. Like, first and foremost, that shouldn't have happened. But again, stop contradicting yourself. The movie at every turn just constantly tried to contradict itself.
That's called bad writing.
Yes,
true. And again, I think we've chatted a lot about a lot of the changes, but I think to sum it up, you look at films directed by some of these great directors. Christopher Nolan, Interstellar. Ridley Scott did The Martian, also Aliens, also many, many other great films. Denis Villeneuve, Blade Runner, Arrival, Dune.
God, yeah, that movie was good.
That was great.
These movies are science fiction films with high concepts that take themselves very seriously, even if there's jokes in them, even if there's humor. And that I want a version of Moonfall that isn't a crappy 90s blockbuster.
Okay.
Right? And that's what I'm trying to sell ultimately with the changes.
Okay.
I could get behind that.
Yeah.
That I would actually want to see. Something with the depth of The Martian mixed with the creativity of Interstellar, delivered in a story like Arrival.
It sounds like you just want Seven Eves in a movie form.
I kind of do.
No, I mean, yes, but
I want a TV miniseries.
Yeah, I'd like maybe 2 seasons and then done. You know, you have the before times and then the after times.
The second season is the 5,000 years, and they expand it so it actually makes sense.
Yeah, yes.
Sorry to the audience who probably haven't read that book, but you should read it.
You really should. It'll take you a month, but like,
yeah,
it's a good one.
All right. So let's move on to casting. Before we do, editor Pat jumping in. Amy, we kind of talked a lot. Did you have anything to say? Did you want to say anything? You
Tell us your secrets.
Look how tired
you guys have a lot of opinions. It's a bad movie. The only thing, I mean, one of the changes you guys didn't bring up that maybe you did, and I just couldn't grasp any concept of it, but the aliens or the humans from the future coming back, they didn't really talk about it in the middle of the movie. I thought it would have been good to put it in more.
Oh, God, like have use
a better word, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, like once you get into the moon, they have that like kind of AI, because technically all the aliens are dead, right? Or at least the ones that we know of. So you're talking about like have the AI explain a little more stuff.
Yeah, that was the only part that actually interested me.
Oh, I didn't think the aliens were dead. I thought they were.
No, they were dead.
Yeah, there's no actual aliens on the moon.
It's just an AI.
It's just an AI. It's just a good AI that.
Oh, they were
everyone.
sent. Okay,
They had to
protect their descendants.
Yeah.
Right. They had to insulate themselves, which is why they built the moon to send it and seed the Earth.
The moon is the arc where they seed it with them like beings. So we're like the same way that we're descended from monkeys. We're also descended from them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They just
seeded
drop
the Earth
DNA.
with.
Yeah.
More shit I was confused about. And I don't see myself as a completely stupid person. So I feel like I should have been able to pick that up.
Which, if we're going to liken it to plot points of other sci-fi movies, that's the plot of Red Planet.
That's true.
You go to Mars, you find an ancient alien AI that says, "Hey, we made you." Like
also Mission to Mars as well. Great movie.
Okay.
With Gary Sinise and Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
Another movie that you could take, for example, home, because the first 2/3 of it is the mission and getting to Mars, and then the last third of it is, oh, aliens are here and they made us and we're going on their spaceship now. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay, so let's jump on to casting. We're going to cast the 3 main leads. Obviously, Brian Harper, played by Patrick Wilson, Joe Fowler, played by Halle Berry, and Casey Houseman, played by, I'm just going to keep saying that dude from Game of Thrones. Yes, that dude from Game of Thrones. What Amy said. So let's start out with that dude. Brian Harper. Amy, why don't you lead us off on this one? Who did you pick for Brian Harper?
My original, I don't know why I thought this, but my original was going to be Steve Carell.
Oh my God.
Only because he was in a really serious TV show that I was watching and I can't even remember the name. But I quickly switched it to Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo.
Ruffalo.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Mark Ruffalo.
Nice.
Rufio.
Interesting. I think Steve Carell would be pretty badass at it.
He plays some really good.
He plays some good serious roles.
But then also when he plays serious roles, he kind of can be not that.
Have you seen
heroic.
Welcome to Marwen?
Mm-hmm.
So he can play a serious role and hold it to the end.
Yeah.
But then, look at Anchorman. I love Lamp, for example. Like, dude's got a little bit of range.
Yeah, he's got the range.
But I think Mark Ruffalo's a good pick.
He's a good pick. Yeah, he's one of those underrated actors that's in lots of things, but never is quite the lead, right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
But he probably had the common sense to turn this movie down. So if it's the remake, then I'm all in on Ruffalo.
Fair. I went with an actor who I think is fantastic, and I think if he was around in the 90s, he would be like the Mel Gibson of that era. Like the reason
Interesting. Okay.
the reason he's not the Mel Gibson is because we're in this like post movie star era where like it used to be that the movie star like Tom Cruise or whatever was like one of the main draws, and we're kind of past that for the most part. So I went with Chris Pine, who has been in a lot of films I love. I just think he kind of has the gravitas and the acting chops to pull off a more serious version of this film. And outside of Star Trek, which is science fiction, but more of like an alternate universe science fiction, he hasn't really been in like a lot of like hard sci-fi stuff, despite him acting in a lot of films. So I think I'd love to see him kind of chew the scenery in a film like this.
We get a little bit of a sneak peek of what he would be like from Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, like the military background captain kind of.
That's not
Yeah.
space.
I mean,
No,
where
but
do
it's similar.
astronauts come from?
Right, but like that's
The
not
ocean,
really
the
science
ocean. I
fiction.
agree.
No, I'm just saying, and no, it's not science fiction, it's more fantasy, but I would say a lot of those skills transfer. Is I guess what I'm saying. So we've got a little bit of a sample of what that would be.
Right. And in the Star Trek remakes, which I generally enjoy.
Yeah.
He's a little more comic relief than I'd like some of the time. And I would not have him be telling jokes or like have him, in the first movie, like he's trying to explain it or falling into a trap, but his hands and tongue are like all swollen. So he's like,
Yeah.
"Wah, wah, wah, wah," like I wouldn't do stuff like that in this movie.
They
I
were
would have
also trying to harken back to the original series a bit.
Yeah.
And you can absolutely tell in the way he does his like pause acting that he's throwing back to William Shatner.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's perfectly fine. But I think just generally speaking, Chris Pine, the dude's got action chops. He's got acting chops. Like
Yeah.
he's got range. He can do action films. He can do drama. He's just
Absolutely. Go see
incredibly
Dungeons and
good.
Dragons.
Yeah, we got to see it. Yeah.
he's in there and he does a great job, honestly.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Fair. All right, so that's my pick. Andrea, Nick, who wants to go next?
I picked Brad Pitt.
Any particular reason why?
Because you loved him in the classic film Ad Astra.
Oh. I'd forgotten about that, actually. I mean, I know he can do serious stuff, and I felt like the role that Patrick Wilson plays is it seemed to me like something that Brad Pitt would have played.
Yeah. I think Brad Pitt is another actor. Again, Chris Pine would be Brad Pitt if he were a little younger, where he's like a megastar. I think Brad Pitt's amazing. Like and not just in the blockbuster films, but like Ad Astra, I loved him in. The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford is like probably my favorite of his films, and like the most underrated Western ever made. Like he's incredible in that, and he's another character that just has like incredible range, even though he's mostly in blockbusters, right?
That's actually one of my favorite Westerns.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of Westerns at all.
Yeah. It's a great film.
Mm-hmm.
So I waffled a lot on who to pick for Brian Harper. But I settled on John Krasinski. Because he's gone from everything from The Office to being, Jack Ryan, thank you, on Amazon Prime. But honestly, I was going to pick Simon Baker. Anybody who's seen The Mentalist, I think he could fall into that role. Very serious acting, but like the dry humor could just work. But I ended up switching to John Krasinski. I think he's a much better fit.
I like that. He's a weird actor, right? Post The Office, you're like, is this dude gonna fade into like nothing? And then he comes out with The Quiet Place in the Media is like an amazing director and actor.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like people were like, where did you come from?
Yep.
Holy crap.
Yep.
He's like the opposite of do you guys know who Matthew Fox is, the lead from Lost?
No.
Like he just did nothing afterwards. Like he was in a Brad Pitt movie actually called World War Z, and his character got like cut, and that's
Oh,
like the
yeah.
last time I saw him in anything. All right, let's move on to Joe Fowler, Halle Berry's character, and Halle Berry, who again felt like she was reading off a teleprompter, as
Yeah,
opposed
like
to her,
she hated being there.
So rough.
especially compared to her classic acting in films like Swordfish, where she plays eye candy. Um, so
or Catwoman, where she plays
eye
Eye
candy,
candy.
eye candy.
Yep. Or that one movie she was in where she won an Oscar that one time. So I went with someone that I know from the TV show Dexter, and that Amy and probably Andrea know from Handmaid's Tale, and that is Yvonne Strahovski. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, she's great.
I was gonna say she's in the Tomorrow War.
Yes, and that's actually where I thought of her from. Obviously, I know her from Dexter, where she plays Dexter's like also serial killer girlfriend, and I thought she was fantastic. Most people know her from The Handmaid's Tale. I did not care for the Tomorrow War, but I thought her acting and her character were great in it.
Agree.
And so I think she's a great actor who can kind of pull it off and is the great age for it. And I just thought, yeah, let's pick her. All right, Amy, what about you?
I chose a more mature actress because in my mind these characters were mature. But I chose
Okay.
I chose Kate Winslet. I think she's a really good actress.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
could see that.
I don't really see her bad in anything she plays. What was that TV show we just saw her in within the last year?
Mar of Easttown, I think.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
That was quite a good show. Yeah, I agree.
She seems like she would have been a used to be astronaut, now works for NASA. Goes back to moon.
It's been a whole episode since I brought up Avatar: The Way of Water, so I'll mention that she plays someone in Avatar: The Way of Water. She was good in it.
Of course she does. James Cameron just had to pull back everyone from every film that he's ever worked on.
Yep.
Correct. Apparently she broke a record for like holding her breath underwater.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn. Okay.
Onward.
Nope, good pick. I like it. Andrea?
I had to go with Janelle Monáe. She was in Hidden Figures.
Yes.
She was she played the lead female actor or character in Glass Onion.
Oh yeah.
She was in Moonlight. Excuse me. Gosh, she was in a couple of other shows or movies too that were really good.
I saw her in Harriet. She was very good in Harriet.
Yeah. I think she has that poise that is needed to like have that sort of female leadership.
Could beat Halle Berry on her worst day.
Yes. Yep.
I think that's an excellent pick. Yeah. I loved her in Glass Onion. I thought she was great in the kind of the double role there.
Yeah, and she was hilarious in that. And I think she could literally act circles around Halle Berry.
Yeah.
Didn't
Controversial,
she win an Oscar for something?
But true.
With her filmography, I wouldn't doubt it.
I don't think so. She must be a singer too, because she's been nominated for a Grammy.
Oh.
Everybody's been nominated for a Grammy.
That's true. I actually have a Grammy statue on my shelf behind me.
Yes.
I've never sung anything in my life.
Nice.
Spoken word album. There we go.
Nick, go ahead.
I went with Zoe Kravitz. And what I was actually thinking back to was her appearances in Fantastic Beasts.
Which is terrible, but go ahead.
Wow. Those are words. We're going to pretend it didn't happen.
No, I mean, the movies are terrible, not that she's terrible in it.
Yeah, still pretending none of what you said happened.
The first one is the only good one. The second and third one are awful.
The first one is great. The second one is good. there's a third one? No,
Yeah.
the answer is there is not a third one.
Oh. Gotcha. 10 for all, buddy.
But no, I think she did great in that, and I'd love to see her in something a little less fantasy and a little bit more sci-fi.
Fair. She was also one of the sexy chicks that has to run away in Mad Max Fury Road.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, one of what's his face's young wives there, which it turns out like everyone in that movie is like a future star.
And I took a peek at her filmography, and apparently she was in Batman, the new one, 2022, with the sparkly vampire Batman.
That's a fantastic film, and she's great in it. She plays Catwoman.
Oh, right.
I told you that.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought she was great in that. I agree. All right, that's a good pick too. I think she's got some acting chops there.
Pat, I see you picked who you picked here for KC.
KC Houseman. So this is the comic relief character. And listen, I'm the biggest Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan that you know. I love the show. I've seen it.
Not heard that before.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Have you heard that before?
I have never heard that before. Oh my
Amy?
God.
Amy, have you heard that from Pat?
Never.
It's the best show.
Weird.
Best sitcom ever. It's fantastic. And obviously the actor I'm going with here is Charlie Day. Because, you know, someone's got to beat those rats to death in this movie, and it's going to be Charlie Day. I love Charlie Day. He's great in everything he's in, with the exception of the second Pacific Rim film, which I did not care for him in. But outside of that, I thought he's great. He's fantastic in Horrible Bosses.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't generally watch romantic comedies, especially not without Amy. Like normally you'd see me volunteering for one to watch it with you, but I watched one without you on Amazon called I Want You Back because it had actors that I really liked in it. One was Charlie Day.
I think Pat has a crush.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I love Charlie Day. He's amazing. Who else is in? Jenny Slate is the other half of the romantic comedy duo. They're both fantastic in it.
Yeah, she's pretty funny.
Yeah, she's very funny. But yeah, Charlie Day's fantastic. He's hilarious. I'd watch him in anything. I think this is the perfect role for him because just think about how crazy like he is as Charlie, especially during something. There's like an actual episode where he works in a mailroom and there's the meme that comes from it with him crazily pointing to the wall. Imagine that version of Charlie Day as the guy who thinks the moon is a megastructure.
Standing at the front of the room in that hotel.
Yeah.
I could see that. That'd be great.
Yeah. So that's my pick, the best pick. I guess everyone else can have a pick if they want, even though they're wrong. But Amy, who'd you pick?
I wanted to pick Charlie Day ever since he said that to me, but of course I couldn't.
You could have just agreed with me.
I thought who's the character that's sort of funny and it kind of can be like a know-it-all, but not really ever. I chose, I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, Aziz Ansari.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay.
Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Also from Master of None, which is a good show.
That's my pick. He's funny. I think he'd be good as somebody who would want to pretend like he's a scientist, but not actually a scientist ever.
I don't mind that pick at all.
Yeah.
We'll put an asterisk next to it and we'll say you picked Charlie Day.
You really said it, and I was like, damn, Pat. And I actually have a note that says, damn, Pat.
Yeah.
Because I kept thinking.
Nick, I know you're also upset that I picked Charlie Day before you could. So who did you pick as your Charlie Day knockoff?
Actually, I'm gonna let Lady go first because she beat me to the punch. That's who I was originally gonna pick, and I was like, no, there's a bunch of different choices. Let me go with something else.
Oh, you actually did go with someone else?
I did.
Oh,
you go ahead.
Okay. All right,
so it's funny because I was looking through actors and I came across Josh Gad. And I was like, holy shit, he'd be perfect. And then I like researched it more, and Josh Gad was
Oh
the
my God.
original actor supposed to play Casey, but he like
Really?
there were like conflicting issues, and he turned it down.
He probably read the script and thought, actually, no.
Actually, no.
So
This-
funny story. I'm gonna let you finish, but funny story.
What did you want to?
No, you make your pick because I was.
So because I said Josh Gad, and Nick was like, "Oh, I wanted that," and I was like, "All right, fine." One of the first actors I picked was before Josh Gad was Nick Frost.
Yeah.
I
So
like that.
that's actually kind of what happened. Is she was like, "Oh, Nick Frost would be perfect in this." Thinking of him from Hot Fuzz, and I'm like, "Oh, you go to hell." I was gonna pick Nick Frost. And I was like, I don't know. I gotta pick someone else. And I picked Josh Gad, and she's like, I was just looking up, and I saw and everything she just said, how he was originally cast for the role and either turned it down or otherwise didn't take it.
He's in a show about like hunting ghosts or something like that I never finished. But I think his character from that is perfect as well. Because he basically plays like the same type of person, a conspiracy theorist.
I really
Truth
picked
Seekers,
him
that's what it's
because
called.
I really picked him because I thought that this movie just absolutely, to add to everything else that's going on, need an animated snowman. It just needed it.
He probably didn't pick the role because he had to say he had IBS. Not many actors want to say that out loud.
Unless they actually do have it.
Fair. Yeah, I think Nick Frost would be a great pick as well. And Josh Gad, I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff, but
he played Gaston in the live action Beauty and the Beast.
He didn't see that.
Oh.
If I did, I honestly don't remember a lot of Disney like remakes.
I mean, that's probably good.
He was in Pixels with Adam Sandler.
Haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen that one either.
He was one of the kids in Honey, I Shrunk the Kid.
No, he was
back in
not.
The day?
Yes, he was.
I don't believe you.
Yes, he was. 1989.
Which one? Honey, I Shrunk the Kid 5?
Nope. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 1. He was one of the kids in 1989.
What?
Hold on, pulling it up.
He was in a very bad TV show that Amy and I didn't like called Avenue 5, which is a sci-fi comedy.
Where is he?
I just know him because he's sort of on Broadway and he does a lot of like,
Wait, he was that short kid with the glasses?
He was absolutely not.
So? No.
They made an.
I thought he was
uncredited.
I thought he was uncredited, but just like one of the kids.
Make an Angry Birds movie.
Well, they did, and he's in it apparently.
Yeah, he's one of the voice actors.
He does have an odd voice.
I mean, I think everyone we've named could do it. I think those are all good picks. I mean, can I get a clap on or an agreement on Charlie Day being the perfect pick though?
I mean,
it's chef's kiss, right?
I've not seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so I can't really say.
That's unfortunate because
that sounds like a personal problem. Yeah.
Well,
I think it's a pretty good pick.
Fix that.
Thank you.
I have a lot of problems.
I demand that you watch all 15 seasons of Always Sunny in Philadelphia right now.
No.
And then change your mind.
I mean, no, listen. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, there is no show that has gone that long and been that good for that long. Like the worst season of Always Sunny in Philadelphia is still like a solid 7 out of 10. And like look at any other show. Like even Seinfeld got to 9 seasons. But like if it got to 15, would it have still been as good? You know what I mean?
The only thing I don't like about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I might get, looked at right now, which I of course am not. It's all the same every single season. It's funny, which makes it keep going, but
well, it's all the same in that they're horrible people who never learn. That's the joke, right?
Yeah,
the joke that you're not supposed to like the characters.
It is funny.
Yeah, but I mean, you could say the same thing about any sitcom. That's the
That's
point of a
true.
sitcom.
You're
Like
right.
the characters on Seinfeld never change. They're always horrible people. That's the joke. That's why we like them.
And how long did that go? Seinfeld?
9 seasons.
Really? That's it?
Mhm. But like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I think in season 14, maybe it was 15, they did an episode about the year 2020, the COVID episode, essentially. That is one of their best episodes. So like the fact that one of my favorite episodes comes like 14 seasons into a show is great. It proves they've still got it. Like in the episode, they accidentally like start like COVID conspiracy theories and accidentally start a election protest when Joe Biden wins the election. They accidentally start the January 6th insurrection.
Oh
They
my
accidentally show up
God.
for it. So like all these funny things where they're trying to be like actually good people, and we're just gonna make sure that the election is not fraudulent. Like they were, you know what I mean? Like they're doing their American duty, and then it turns into like it's just so well done. And they constantly jump into political situations and never come down on a side for the most part. They always make fun of everybody, and they're always the terrible people, and they never apologize for it. It's such a great show. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. I should step off my soapbox.
Yeah, your pick was good enough, okay?
Yeah, true.
It was fine.
Aggressively fine. All capital letters fine.
Aggressively fine.
Solid 8 out of 10.
All right. Well, we filmed 2 episodes back to back, and Amy just looks like she's asleep, so we should probably end this episode.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree. Well, first, before we end it, we've got to do our would we remake it? Listen, this movie's awful and it could be good. So the answer is yes for me. Amy, do you want to remake it?
The amount of effort and money they put into this, yes, remake the damn thing.
Oof.
Nick?
Oh, man. I don't know, man. It needs a lot.
Right?
Like
I'm not-
a lot.
Oh, burn it down and start over, but yes.
Just basically take it down to the skeleton and redo it.
Yeah.
Keep the major plot points, and otherwise it bears no resemblance to the original.
Well, it's still called Moonfall.
Which I want to change the name.
Amy tried to change the name earlier before we started filming, and I vetoed her even talking about changing the name. Because Moonfall is a great name for a movie.
No, it's not.
The concept of the moonfalling is brilliant.
Stupid.
Moonfall.
Yeah.
First, mine was horrible. Mine was Looming Pole. So fuck it.
What?
All
would
right,
you remake it, Nick?
Andrea.
yeah,
Nick,
yeah.
I'm gonna say you. I'm gonna edit you saying yes. I'm gonna find.
I just said yes.
All right, perfect. No need to edit it in. Andrea.
Yeah, I'd remake it, if only to strip it down to like the bare bones, like less than bare bones. Like this is a movie with people in it. Start there and then build it back up. Yes, then I'd remake it. Yes.
Yeah, if we're talking about the moon is crashing towards Earth, aliens, some people fix it. That's it. Like, I think that's how far back we'd have to strip this.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we go that far and we can take some of the good plot points and put some proper writing behind it, then yeah, I think it's a worthwhile effort.
Maybe.
Good pick, Pat.
Thank you.
Awful pick, Pat.
I mean, I'm happy I made you all watch this film.
I am a lesser person because of it.
I honestly thought you were trolling.
All right, listen. R.I.P. to Tom, the real hero of the movie Moonfall.
Tom, the real VIP.
Let's end the podcast while the music plays with a moment of reflection for a man willing to give his life saving his family from the Moonfall. R.I.P. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Original Remake Podcast. If you'd like to provide feedback or have a question, please email us at remake.cast@gmail.com. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks.